Hello, good morning, everyone. Few things before we begin the day. Some housekeeping. Please make sure that you will have your phone muted during the entire sessions that we will have today and the following days. And also, there are strict rules by the conference center that they are not allowed any beverages and food within the auditorium, so just water. So just be aware of this one. So hello and good morning, everyone, and very warm welcome to Cambridge and to the Excellerator 2023. And we're very excited because it's GBR's first ever initiative aimed at developing leadership skills in future leaders. And we are really excited to have you, all of you here with us today. And we hope that you all have an amazing time during the next 3 days. So the first question that we should address is why are we here today and what is the aim with the Excellerator initiative that we are introducing within GBR's flagship events. So from its inception, GBR has been guided by 3 pillars. Our first and primary mission is to inspire the next generation of leaders. And we do this by challenging them to identify solutions for the gaps that persist within the biotech and healthcare sectors. And over the years, we have successfully achieved this through our flagship event, the GAP Summit, which GAP Summit is an entrepreneurship-oriented focused initiative where we invite future leaders to tackle the pressing challenges identified through these sectors. And the second pillar that we are working on at GBR is to foster robust and sustainable communities because we believe in providing a platform where members can connect with like-minded individuals, expand their networks, find support that they need, and access to mentorship programs in order to achieve their personal and professional goals. And today we are here because of the third pillar that we are working on at GBR, which is all about developing leadership skills which are necessary for our audience and our community. And we have here 100 promising leaders, and we hope over the course of the next 3 days to provide you the essential leadership skills required in order to turn your inspiration into tangible real-world impact. And so we see this with this introduction of the Accelerator program within our portfolio. We see our mission as a holistic ecosystem, and it's a place where future leaders can draw inspiration to address pressing challenges in healthcare and biotech sectors, but we don't stop there. We also want to provide the right tools and resources that you need to turn your visions into reality in a success and sustainable way. So 2.5 years ago, when we embarked on this journey called the Accelerator, we started with a fundamental question: what is leadership? So leadership, in a nutshell, is the ability of an individual, group, or an organization to lead, influence, or guide other individual teams or entire organization. And throughout the entire process of shaping the event, this definition has been our guiding star because our aim is to nurture leadership skills that they are applicable to everyone, whether they aspire to start their own ventures, drive innovation and research, chart academic trajectories, lead already existing and successful companies, or even make difference in their local communities. And the genesis of this initiative stemmed from the pressing issues that we identify that leadership has today. So these are some of the stats about the problem that people, and especially young talent, are facing, where only 22% of the people feel that their leaders have strong vision and direction, almost 80% of the leaders are failing within the first 18 months in their new roles. And this is, of course, translated into 80% of the young entrepreneurs, only 8% actually of the young entrepreneurs building successful startups. And of course, only 10% of the Fortune 500 companies are led by women. So these statistics prompt us to create the initiative dedicating to fostering the right mindset and skills that required by the leaders in the fields of biotech and healthcare and life sciences. And the Accelerator program is one of its kind that combines, actually we built it in a way that combines the academic expertise and knowledge with industry expertise, emerging leaders with skills that they need sooner rather than later in their career stages. So the first part of the program lays the theoretical foundation, covering the core elements and areas that every leader should master, while the second part of the program gives the opportunity to the participants to learn from some of the most foremost leaders in the fields about the art of leadership. And as you're already aware, the Academy is our online learning platform that spanned 8 weeks leading up to this forum. And during this time, we delved deep into critical aspects of leadership, including cultivating the right organization culture, mastering negotiation skills, understanding the importance of effective communications for a leader, and of course, exploring other topics like the ethics, why a leader needs to be sustainable and adaptable, the importance of networking, the style that a leader should have, and of course, scalability. And throughout the Academy, we had the privilege of hosting top-notch academics and experts in these fields who delivered enlightening master classes. And we complemented these sessions with carefully curated learning materials accessible through our online learning platform, including books, videos, podcasts, and others. So the aim of the Accelerator Academy was to provide you with the comprehensive understanding of what it truly takes to excel in these critical areas and act as the basis for the conversations that you will all have with the speakers during the forum. Now, as we all participating to the next phase of the Accelerator Forum, over the next 3 days, our aim is to bring leadership to life through engaging keynotes, panel discussions, and invaluable networking sessions that we will have during the evenings. And we are here to showcase leadership in action and shed light on the attributes and practices that lead to success, just as our distinguished speakers that have exemplified. And these discussions throughout the forum will be organized around those 3 verticals: strategy, management, and execution. And day 1, today we will be focusing on strategy, where in a nutshell is the deliberate plan of action designed in order for someone to achieve their goals. And throughout the day, we will explore the transformation from identifying gaps to achieving excellence. We will discuss the different leadership phenotypes and the unique styles and traits associated with each of them. Later, we'll have very interesting conversations between Alexander Hardy and Hannah Katzler, and also they will be followed by an equally exciting discussion with Hans Bishop about the pivotal role of leadership in building successful biotech companies. And after our lunch break, we'll delve into how strategic leadership fosters innovation within ecosystems. We will also gain insights into what drives investment into biotech sector and what the leader needs to be aware when it comes down to this. And also we will discuss why it's important a leader to be adaptable in fast-changing environments. And we will conclude our day with a very interesting conversation with Nobel laureate Greg Winter, who will join us to share his views on how to become a leader in the fields that everyone is operating. So this is the overview of the day, and as me and Sophia mentioned yesterday, we would like to emphasize the importance to all of you that this is a unique opportunity, and we will motivate you to actively participate to the conversation with all the speakers that we have throughout the entire conference, so you can get the most out of the forum. So, in closing, of course, we would like to extend and thank our partners who have played an instrumental role in turning our vision into reality, because together we have successfully built an initiative that is dedicated to nurturing leadership skills among young, talent, promising people. And at GBR, we are profoundly thankful for the unwavering support that they have provided to us in order to build this event. So once again, congratulations to all of you guys, and we hope that you have an incredibly journey throughout the following 3 days. And please grab the opportunity and make the most out of the forum. So now for the first talk of the Accelerator forum, it's a great honor and pleasure to welcome Matthias Evers. Matthias is the Chief Business Officer of Evotech since May 2022. And with over more than 20 years of experience at McKinsey & Company, where he co-led global R&D efforts in life sciences, Matthias brings unparalleled expertise to business development, digital technology, and strategy. And his impactful career spans the globe with a focus on innovation in R&D, organizations, and fostering cross-industry collaborations. Matthias is a published thought leader in the biorevolution and has advised and spoken at prestigious scientific conferences, including Lindo Nobel laureate meeting. Matthias' academic journey began with a PhD in molecular biology and bioinformatics from the University of Bochum, and he continues to contribute to the scientific community as a founding member of the Competence Center Biointelligence. So also we are very thrilled to have Matthias with us today at GBR, because Matthias recently joined the advisory board of GBR, and we are looking forward to working with him. So without further ado, let's extend a warm welcome to Matthias Evers.
Puh, a Monday morning. That feels... Johannes, now you put the bar high, so I have now to think about what I do with the next 45 minutes. Now, it's great to see everybody, bright and early and energized. So let's kick this off. I think I actually modified the title maybe a little bit, from gaps to acceleration, the why and what and how. But before I even start, I have a question. So, are you excited about science and to make an impact to the world? And I'm just curious, and I take a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 is high. So who's in the 1 to 3 camp? No fear. I mean, who's in the 4 to 7? Okay, 8 to 9. Maybe 10 to 12. So anyway, so you're in the right meeting, I think. I mean, this is, of course, the core of it. And I mean, I couldn't be more excited about it. And I'm almost, Johannes is bringing me almost off track, because I would love to go into the war story why leadership matters in science, but maybe somebody asked me later. So what I'm planning to do is to go through 3 pieces. And we have, I think, 45 minutes. The one is a little bit maybe a little bit the question, why? Why should somebody take this on? It's maybe very fundamental, and maybe and not philosophical on a Monday morning, but I mean, let's start with the why and the purpose. Then I have a real case example, something I'm working in human disease understanding, and why I feel this is a huge gap. This is not just incrementally fiddling around at another drug, but a big challenge, and why it's worth to sign up for such a big challenge. And the third one, I think, is a question many of you are having, how to do that. And I will just touch it, and along the way, there are questions are welcome. So I think I have two colleagues with microphones. So for sure, there's a time at the end, but interrupt me if I'm too fast or anything. So one could start here and say, look, I mean, we are just in a bubble. I mean, we are all, I mean, social media is all over us, and the world is bad, and everything is catastrophic. I mean, some facts, of course, say it's not so catastrophic. Extreme poverty is falling, longevity is actually increasing, so life expectancy. Now, of course, that's not true. No, well, the facts are true. I mean, let me be correct. These facts are true, but we also know from the risk of war, or even war, refugees, hunger, drought, climate change. Of course, there are significant problems, not to say the least, what I will talk about, human disease, and actually longevity. So there's a fundamental challenges where it takes, frankly, leadership. I mean, good ideas are not enough, because an idea is not worth a lot if you can't get it executed. An idea is just not alone is not good enough, because there are so many ideas. You can look from left to right. There's so many ideas. The question is how to make a difference. But as I promised, I mean, this is a little bit, I mean, to get us started. Why, actually? Edmund Burke is an Anglo-Irish everything, philosopher, economist, I mean, how it was in these days, in the 18th century. But I think there's a really big reason, because if good people, I would say, don't start, nobody is starting. And I just want to, I find it exciting that you are here. I think that this first piece is maybe echoing that, because it takes something to address these challenges. Now, the point is, you might say, how do I tackle that? I said already, ideas alone are likely not enough. But I think it's just the statement. And Peter Drucker is maybe, sometimes I say, and am I on camera? I might be on camera. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger of management consulting. I mean, he's an Austrian who lived published a lot, lived, I think, most of his life in the US. And you create the future you want. It's a very simple statement. It's a powerful statement. And then let me conclude this brief, hopefully, mobilization, I mean, in the UK on Churchill, which is, of course, it will not really work every step along the way. You need some courage. And I will pick this up later, after my case example. What does it actually mean practically? So what can you do? So this chapter was my easy one, because as I did this a little bit, this question, I mean, you are, of course, convinced you want to make a difference. Now, the first longer piece I want to tackle a little bit to make a case for human disease understanding, how to think about it, and how to tackle it. How am I doing? Okay, speed-wise? Everybody good? Good. Human disease understanding. So medicines can make a real difference. We do know there are medicines that are not making that much of a difference, because it's not really working for everybody. But I'm taking here examples out of cell therapy, where the word cure is actually, I think people are start daring to use the word cure. I mean, in this example, this girl would not live without the CAR T-cell therapy. And of course, this was only a starting point for a new modality. We have to take this into context, because the industry is focusing, and I would say not wrongly so, where there's a certain incentive to gain a return. That's, after all, what economy is all about. But this system leads also to a situation where certain therapeutic areas are not getting the investment required. So what is this slide showing you? It's showing you, I mean, on the x-axis, where it's basically a proxy for the industry investment. And surprise, surprise, there is a lot of investment in oncology. This is not saying all cancers have a cure in sight. That's not, but it's just an overemphasis on the industry investment. Whereas you see, particularly in cardiovascular, there's an underinvestment. Now, I will speak about obesity. So, of course, there's now suddenly more an interest in areas, broadly in metabolic syndrome. But the question is only, yes, medicines can matter, but I mean, it's not clear that we address all the unmet needs that are out there. More drastically, much more drastically, is when you look at the unmet needs at a global scale. And this graph is not on this large screen, it's actually visible. Focus on the dark red. I mean, developing countries, underdeveloped nations, carry a lot of the unmet need burden. And that's, of course, a mix of not access to medicines that already exist, but this is also about diseases that have no treatment, no cure, etc. And the statistics on the right shows you, I mean, 40% of the unmet need sits in these countries. So, and I hope, given the diversity of this group, we can make a difference here. Now, this slide is super important to understand. The toolbox has never been richer, and that's why I'm saying, I mean, there are a lot of ideas. They're not only ideas, the toolbox has never been richer. Is everything perfect? No. Are there challenges? Yes, of course. When it comes to, and we know there's on gene therapy and delivery and all kind of technical questions, but the toolbox has never been richer. So we have a situation where we know medicines can make a difference. We know we have significant unmet needs, and the toolbox has never been richer. One part of the problem is, of course, how to provide, not only generate innovation, but also provide it to patients. Now, obesity, everybody in the drug industry is, of course, somehow touching or talking about obesity, given the recent success of GLP-1s. This is a class like semaglutide. I mean, this is a class of medicines, I mean, with Novo Nordisk and Lilly spearheading. And what I did here is a little bit an example calculation, which by and large will be wrong, but also not totally wrong. So what I did here is I've just said, what's the prevalence in the US of obesity? Then, I mean, I took an annual price, and you suddenly see you end up at 1.5 to 2 trillion. This will not happen. That's also clear to me, because it can't happen. But the point is, this is only obesity. Now we start then saying, wait a second, but what about all the other chronic indications? Well, I mean, so there we have a sustainability access problem given the economics. Now, a bigger problem related to that is, now I start thinking, wait a second, I have diabetes, I have obesity, I have maybe a fatty liver, NASH, but what starts actually? Is obesity driving my cardiovascular problems, or is it the other way around? Because my metabolism is out of synchronization, and that's why I get obesity. So here's a deeper problem. It's not only the access, the cost, but it's frankly also what's happening in this disease, and that's where I want to turn the discussion a little bit to. Before I go there, it's a great story, medicines that matter, make a difference, obesity, etc. This is more for this group, for making my case here, I mean, as context, and this is likely something you know. The R&D, despite all the positive news I'm also trying to contribute, it's of course still an inefficient model by nature, because it's a high-risk game, but also how it's implemented. And you can pick some statements here. I mean, one statement that I will come back to, that many drugs are successful in clinical trials, but don't work for everybody. So I said recently for autoimmune disease, with a great drug, which I won't disclose by name, basically a clean profile, totally safe, highly efficacious, but it works only for half of the people. So I mean, but who's now innovating something for the other 50%? Because it's not obvious. And everybody will say, no, I mean, we can't differentiate. And it's very hard to tackle the other 50%. So 50% of sick people are left alone. So again, I'm not coming only with economic productivity of R&D, but more how do we understand the disease, just again. So what this is actually about, we need to understand disease relevance earlier. So what you see here on top is really what happens today. I mean, still today, we have a lot of situations where somebody is interested in a target and reads the paper. Now, small footnote, quite in 50% of the cases or so, scientific research cannot be replicated. Of course, for nobody in this room, and that's a joke, yeah, because this is not bad will often. It's not bad will. I was myself in the lab, and I'm not so sure if everything could be replicated, because if I look now at an industry-grade platform that, I was in the days in proteomics, and that was more like art to replicate two-dimensional gels. I mean, as an art, because it was very hard to replicate even then. But my point is, that's where it starts. Then there's a years and years and years of work, and later, often in phase 2, phase 3, years later, you understand, does it actually work? And I think the premise, and it says here future paradigm, I would say the paradigm many of us are working, including myself, I mean, this is not about Evotech, but what we are working on. How do I understand a disease at the start? That could mean based on human data, and I will introduce how to think about this. But in many ways, then you can either stop here very early or have an accelerated path. And the whole story here is that these slides maybe tell you things you know. Somehow you heard about market access, about pricing, unmet need, underdeveloped need, but I want to get to the root cause or the root solution to get into disease understanding. Now, this is the one slide which is maybe Evotech, but it's perhaps a straw man of how to do something which is different. So this is a similar value chain. You start somewhere in validation, but I want to highlight a couple of areas that are hopefully interesting. And when you look for a career and making a difference, you look for in the area you work in. And what are these elements? So I would first call out somehow a molecular patient database. So there are many companies, and I won't name them, who collect clinical patient data. I think the interesting bit starts when you take clinical information. Let's say you go to a GP, you're in a hospital, whatever clinical data is there, lab data, that you actually profile at a molecular level. So you would go and get down to the level of transcriptomic information, proteomic information, ideally at a single cell level. So we have an Alzheimer example where we go into each cell type, single cell by cell type, so the neuron, the glial cell, the astrocytes, etc. And so I just want to make the point that molecular human information, ideally at a single cell level, can make a difference. So then, of course, you have the data generation. So you need the platforms because then we talk zillions of data points. Now, the data generation platforms are very important. And that is not only genomics, if there's one point. I mean, there's a full multi-omic profiling. A second bit, and we framed it as Penhunter, I mean, suddenly drug R&D becomes a cross-functional team sport where you need a lot of software engineers, data engineers, a lot of AI, machine learning experts. And the point is, how do I translate a multi-omic profile into a finding that can have disease relevance? So we have the data generation, molecular patient databases. We have a lot of, let's frame it under AI broadly, so that we are with a moment of our time, so we call it AI. And I think what's then important, and this is an example, there are different examples, how do I show early disease relevance? It's actually, I mean, we take a couple of bets. One bet is with induced pluripotent stem cells, that you can go very early into a human model to validate. Now, there's, of course, a next step for early clinical trials, which is also, I mean, how do you learn most out of a couple of patients? Let's call it a phase 1B type of trial. But, I mean, start as early in humans. I will go almost so far in this example and say, animal testing does not really help us. That's maybe a too strong statement and can be argued for back and forth because they do help us somewhat. And as a doctor, I would also be nervous to give a new medicine without any animal data on safety to a patient. But the point is, if we take human-based platforms on iPSC cells, molecular characterization, and then test the safety of compounds, and this is a controlled experiment, we get actually highly competitive attrition rates. So this means this drug has not touched any animal. So it's a drug candidate, comes directly out of MedChem, and this is only safety. Of course, you can do this for benefit-risk ratios, for efficacy, safety as well. So this is just illustrating, it's the smallest possible example, perhaps, for making the case, how do you learn early about relevance? So what this really hopefully gives you, there are the well-discussed problems, the access, all that stuff I started with. But let's rethink a little bit, how can we tackle that? So, and this is a way different story than, oh, big pharma co 1, 2, 3 hires you into MedChem and you fiddle around at one molecule. The story, I mean, it's possible today. The toolbox is there, and that's I want to invite you to. And this is a slide I would love you to remember. Now, it's not obvious because there are a lot of curves, and I need a little bit to walk you through with it, but I think we are good in time. What's happening here? This is the situation largely today. So you know my name, I'm Matthias, so I mean, and something might happening in my body. And the trick here is, I don't have symptoms. Symptoms are at the bottom. But some disease mechanisms might already be progressing. And I don't know, and I'm a little bit a fan, and right now I'm using this Whoop, but no promotion. It's this 3 months I'm just testing, and I'm very curious at the heart rate variability. And sometimes it's off, and sometimes I wonder, and I'm not speculating, but maybe some early disease mechanisms are progressing. Up to a point, I see a symptom. What happens when you have a symptom?
You go to the doctor.
You go to the doctor. Yeah, of course, you go to the doctor. And then, I mean, if you're lucky, the doctor recognizes the symptom, and you get a treatment. And let's assume, I mean, the treatment works, you maybe recover, but it's very rare you get to complete health. But the symptom is gone because, as we know, I mean, that's why we talk about often symptomatic treatments, obviously. Now, precision medicine has gotten a little bit a bad rap because people say it's expensive, it's not scalable, etc. And of course, I mean, for many monogenetic diseases, I mean, where you have a mutation, it works very well. Because then you know a disease is happening, even before a symptom, let's say based on a genotype. And if you address that, you possibly can get back to a healthy state. But what I'm postulating, for inspiring you, but also frankly because I believe more of us need to work on it, is, I mean, we called it here data-driven healthcare, and I say a little bit about the term, where you say, well, I'm healthy, but even before, or maybe a small dip into disease processes, maybe this is a little bit exaggerating. A small dip, I recognize it because I have some monitoring, I understand something is happening, and I respond early to avoid even the severe symptoms. So this almost means it's not about disease understanding, it's about health understanding. Because we need to understand health, how it's progressing. Where do I stand as a X-year-old male, female, in my cohort to understand, is this actually normal what's happening in my body at a molecular level? Now, and if that's true, and this is why I'm making disease understanding a major gap actually, and something worth tackling, because this suddenly means it's blurring between the drug companies, the diagnostic companies. The insurers have to rethink it, because we get out of a sick system into a true health system. Because today, this sickness system, if you want, I mean, a symptom drives a code drives reimbursement, all that stuff. And that's really, I want to conclude on this case where I say health, staying healthy is as soon as you see somebody in your family, in your context, I mean, it's one of the greatest goods we have. And it can be sometimes misleading when you hear the stories, because this is not like a 20-year-old drug paradigm and we execute the next drug. This maybe gives you a little bit of feeling what's possible with the rich toolbox we have. So, and for such a group like here, I want to invite you not to come to Evotech. You are also welcome. But the point is, when you go into an area of health, to open your mind how to tackle it. That's hopefully a little bit one of the learnings of this case. I thought about adding this last slide in this case example, and then I decided to do it because it's a little bit an add-on. But at the same time, I believe it's an important add-on, because if that's true what I said, we need collaboration. Now, we know a collaboration is always sustainable if it's through partnerships and partners contribute to each other. That's why I wanted to raise this frame of a business-to-business, a shared R&D economy. Perhaps an add-on idea for you to consider as you maybe start a biotech or you get into a small company, because what I'm trying to postulate a little bit to get over transactional relationships, which is just the big pharma wants to buy the next drug and make a case out of it, but how do companies contribute to each other? And the real life example is, in the current market, many of you know, it's not the greatest environment for creating companies. So interest rates are high, people are very conservative, and what happens these days? Somebody successful creates a company, and the investors will tell them, you know what? You focus on that drug, on the first IND, that's all you do, forget all the scientific platform you have. And I think that's wrong, because the scientific platform can give you much more than that one drug, but nobody cares right now. But business-to-business relationship could perhaps safeguard in the end, your scientific ideas a bit. Now let me really conclude and get a little bit to the how-to part, and then we have also time for discussion. I'm still struggling on my story, Johannes. You brought me off. Maybe I do that later. So I stay on the storyline, and I looked a little bit around, and I found this from Marie Curie. So I don't overdo it. I let you maybe read a little bit because I'm not reading it fully. Because he has a lot in there. And it's quite consistent with the definition Johannes put up, because we have our own responsibility to lead us, lead self, but we achieve nothing if we don't look beyond us. And this is maybe even a little bit broader than just leading, because it's an improvement at the same time, share general responsibility for all humanity, which is, of course, a big statement. I mean, what do we expect from a lady like Marie Curie? But the point is, you have to look beyond yourself. And others have to look at you and to look at you. Now, what does this grand quote actually imply? And here I put up 6 attributes that I feel quite passionate about, I mean, over the years of work, I mean, that are important. I will go now one by one, and then I will conclude my talk, and then we can see how we are doing on questions. And I try to, not sure if I have an example for all 6, but let me try this. Curiosity. Now, obvious statement. I mean, I can't be great in science if I'm not curious. My immediate point is, don't forget that. Because I'm in so many meetings where curiosity is gone. Because everybody's defending his or her idea and not being curious why somebody else has a different viewpoint. It all becomes suddenly about corporate agendas, and I'm successful, you are successful. Don't forget the curiosity you maybe even had. I hope it's still here. But I can't underemphasize it. Never stop asking questions. And I sometimes struggle Because with my teams, I'm then sometimes, we have to go left, not right. But do I force myself to ask questions? Why is something coming up? Never forgot to stop asking questions. That I would say, in my book, is a good starting point. The second one, collaboration, also easy said. But of course, colleagues coming out of science know in the end it's also hard individual contribution. You sit there, you do the thinking, you do the lab experiment. But really appreciating that as a team you get more done. And I see that with my boys. I have 2 boys. And they are, one is 16, one is 20. And they are a little bit at that brink where, on the one hand, if you're very efficient and smart, you get quicker done. And somebody in the team is maybe not, and then they come home, this team is annoying. But why is that team actually better? The diverse viewpoint. And it's a big learning. And I think, I'm not going into statistics, but also from own experience. Why does teamwork make a big difference? So getting good as a team member, as a team leader, and embracing teamwork, I would highly recommend. Perseverance, I guess, it's in your lifeblood, maybe not too much of an example. I think it's on the list. I can only say it's really true. You need perseverance. And it's maybe one of these points never to forget. There will be dark minutes, dark moments where you say, why am I doing this? Just don't forget it. Staying informed is actually harder than easier. Because, it relates a little bit to curiosity, but it's very easy to get into a hole, and the hole is your functional excellence. So, and by the way, I have a lot of appreciation for large pharma. Maybe my example sounded a little bit not like that, because, I have lots of friends there. But I take now one more challenging example, because the functional excellence could mean the following. I get interested. I take a job, then I get into, be my guest, into R&D, and I start in safety. And then for the next 20 years, I'm in safety. And all I deal with, what's the latest safety assay? And that's great, and we need functional excellence. The point is, do you lift your head? What's the relevance? And for instance, it could mean the prediction example, suddenly getting away from animal experiment, or even larger issues. So stay informed. Number 5, inspiring role models. I would say this is a what's actually a word? Inspirement? No, that doesn't exist. A highly inspired group here. Still, you need role models. So maybe it puts inspiring in brackets, because I feel by nature such a group here is highly inspired. But do you have the role models? So, and I would tackle this from 2 sides. The one is you inspire others. That relates to teamwork. Don't forget that, because you are here, and a friend might, why were you in Cambridge? And in the collaboration, you inspire others. And secondly, I would say, don't forget working with role models, because right now it's maybe easy. You're at a college, you're at university, you are a postdoc, and you have a more structured environment. At some point of time, you get out of this structured environment. And I provide one example which one of my mentors years ago gave me. Choose your advisory board. And I said, what do you mean, choose your advisory board? Choose your advisory board. Pick the 5 people that are your advisory board. They don't even need to know they are on it. So, by the way, I did it, and it's genuine. It's genius, this idea. You just say, pick 5 people you really feel they inspire you in elements, because typically there will be not the one person you feel 100% is great, but maybe this person is good on how he or she deals with people, maybe whatever. And you say, maybe every half a year, I ask this person a few questions. Voila, there's your advisory board. Now, of course, you can formalize it as much as you like and call them and say, are you my mentor? But do you need to? Build your advisory board. And a moral compass, I would add on, the world is difficult. There are complex issues, and I even touch some issues which are not so easy. If you touch cell therapy, gene therapy, even in my presentation, you could find areas that require also moral judgment, so never forget your moral compass. Manfred Eigen is a physicist. I mean, he was one of our co-founders more than 30 years ago. I don't talk about what he founded, that's not the point. I quite like this statement because, I mean, it's a little bit about a broader purpose. And that's also why we started on leadership, why I think you are here. So it's maybe a good point to conclude my talk. So I thank you for the attention. I thank you for being inspired about trying to make a difference. I invite you to take on big cases. I mean, I make a case for disease understanding. And with that, thank you, and I think we have time for Q&A.
Hello, thank you very much. Very inspiring. Especially the last slide was, like, for me, super conclusive and insightful. And this is where I'm going to focus my two small questions. So the first one is about curiosity. And I was wondering, how did you or how do you deal with a person in a leadership position that is defending their ideas and they are not open? This is the first one. And the second is about the moral compass, which I also consider very important. But I find personally myself kind of fighting internally sometimes. And I'm wondering how is this reflected in a big scale? So when you are in a system, as we call it, how do you apply your moral compass in practice? Yeah. So, you know, in big pharma, I think it's very difficult sometimes to align. So, thank you very much.
Monday morning and two tough questions, so thank you, thank you for that. You start somewhere, you have somebody being not open in a leadership position. I would come with 3 elements of an answer. The first one might not be very practical, but still it's relevant. Where's actually that person coming from? So it's very easy. Oh, my boss is not open. It's very easy to accept the wall and just say, I bang against the wall. So, and I'm coming from, this could be a situation, well, there was a divorce, or this person has a boss with very clear ideas. So first, a little bit, call it the understanding. So, because typically, I mean, you don't go there mentally, but because you only see the wall. So the second bit is very much about, and it's a proper word, influencing. Because if there's a person in front of you, you don't have a lot of choices for influencing. It's very simple. I mean, the one question could be, is there anything around, and I go through a few things, where you have other people this person looks to, like a role model or something, that can make a difference? Because that person might have a peer and the peer is interested. Very basic. Secondly, is there any formal mechanism that can play a role? Because it's not only your, let's say it's your boss, but also there's a governance meeting where it's not about your boss alone. So there's a mechanism. Is there a common understanding? I mean, is it actually clear what this person is saying no to? There may be 1, 2 others, but think about influencing as a toolkit. And the third one is maybe a little bit more binary, but you do that a couple of times. And for some people it's 3 months, for some people it's 3 years, but at a certain time you recognize you can't work there. That essentially can be also a conclusion. I'm not going there. I think there's a lot in 1 and 2, but anyway, so that's one. On your moral compass question, I think I'm with my chapter 1, you need courage. And I give you a real example, which I saw from the distance, and I won't disclose too much, but quite often you have an objective setting, which can mean all the best for the customer, all the best for the partner, etc. And that leads an organization down a route which sometimes is ignoring the broader context of whatever they're doing, selling something, promoting something, whatever. And you as an individual, do you take the step back and see what's going on? I mean, there's a full breadth of raising your voice, which takes courage, possibly even, I mean, this sounds maybe off, possibly even taking a whistleblower hotline. But the point is, it's actually healthy. And I mean, I will say the same within my company, because sometimes an organization can very easily get on a road where it's not by bad intent, but certain context is missing. So thanks for getting us started. Maybe this slide.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation, very inspiring. So I have a couple of questions. I'll just wrap it up. So the first question is, on your presentation, you talked about the life expectancy. You look at that in Africa, and it's still good, but mostly we rely on the symptom curve, right? So how or why do you think, I mean, even though we are still on that curve, we still have a great life expectancy? And then also my second question is, we don't have that data-driven way of doing our health. What do you think we should do? What other alternatives are available that, I mean, we can still do a lot of these research, come up with a lot of these amazing ideas and go on to these companies whilst not having the means to do this single cell data-driven research? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, two very good questions. The first one is simple, just to follow my storyline. I'm not suggesting the life expectancy curves are great, and of course they are worse in developing nations than developed nations. That is also my point. The point is you see a gradual improvement. Yeah, so you could look at the world with a lens of we are getting improvement, which is true. And I would always invite, that's why I invite also for curiosity, because I think two bipolar stories are always wrong. Neither the world is a broken place, because that's just not wrong. That's what I mean, that's the media is living off. I mean, it's partly also clickbait, but of course it's not fully off. So I would take it as relative improvement is my method. The second question is it's much more interesting, because I mean, let's think about where we are. We are driven, I mean, in a healthcare system out of the Middle Ages. And that has led to a lot of improvements, because you see a patient, then you have a symptom. Based on a symptom, you can categorize a patient. So Tim or Tom has headache. That lies to, okay, how do I understand headache? That leads you to a target. It's a very logical scheme. The problem with that is, and that's why it's more about leadership and inspiring, we need to break that somehow. And that's hard, because I put up a few things. It's how budgets are distributed between I mean, payers, diagnostic companies, healthcare companies. And I think we need success cases and moments like, and I think, like how COVID led to the mRNA vaccine. I think we have to look what's the analogs that could break it. So, I mean, some consumer companies started in an interesting way. For instance, if you think about my example of this data generation, if such companies go a little bit more into, well, wait a second, could we characterize people at a molecular level, and consumer interest drives something? But we need to break that system a bit to make a difference. And hopefully individually invent interesting things that then slowly make a difference. Thank you. Maybe here. Okay.
Yeah, I have. Thank you for your presentation. It was extremely inspiring. I have a question actually on the third column that you mentioned, the data-driven healthcare. Yeah. Could you elaborate a little bit on basically on the business model? Because we see mainly two things: is that like money follows attention, and we have, as human, a big problem with delayed gratification. Right? It's the climate change problem, basically. Yeah. So how can you, not you, but I mean us as a society, ensure that we're going to be able to have a business model which is going to promote prevention rather than cure? And also, if we go into a data-driven healthcare system, could you briefly comment on companies like Peer Therapeutics and Babylon Health that are just bankrupt, which were like the most successful example of data-driven healthcare, digital health? Like, yeah, which way should we look and what should we do? Thank you.
So thank you, and it's another one in the tough Monday morning question, and I will admit, in the end, I don't have the perfect answer. Maybe that's disappointing. I have ideas. I mean, I spend my energy on these ideas, but the real answer, I mean, it's a similar question also like from your colleague here, how do we get there? I would just say maybe there are some core fundamentals. The first fundamental is, can more people please understand what's going on here? If it's broader common knowledge that we are still largely in a symptomatic world, that we are actually wasting money between the silos of with diagnostics and so one is, I'm saying, I'm not even with business model. One I'm saying is understanding. That would be a good groundswell. Even, I mean, let's assume out of these 100 colleagues here, 10 create a company with now suddenly a slightly different idea. That would be great success. So, understanding. Secondly, I would say, does the healthcare system at least allow innovation? And that's why Babylon is, for me, a great example. I mean, Babylon is actually not fully on molecular data, etc., along the, but I mean, and in this environment, many companies go bankrupt. We have right now 300 biotech companies trading under their cash value. So it's a tough world out there. So I'm not too that sounds unfair, but the point is at least the healthcare system allowed to innovate business models and try it out, because then you actually see what's successful. I think it's next to understanding it's on the academic side. Do we feed enough money into these research paradigms that then create a business model? So I would start there. And I don't think somebody can answer right now what's a perfect business model. But for sure, it has to overcome current silos. Maybe behind you?
We're running out of time, but Matthias will stay a bit longer later on, and please feel free to
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.